Hi, my name is Jessie, and this morning I was on a walk and just reflecting over my clinical practice, my experience as a doctor of physical therapy specializing in frequency-specific microcurrent, and realized that I think I have kind of a unique story with how I got to where I am and what perspective I bring to treating people with frequency-specific microcurrent. So I am inspired to share that, and I hope that it's just enlightening, inspiring, and I guess helps you to get to know me a little better and what I'm up to in the realm of frequency-specific microcurrent. So I decided to go back to school. My undergrad is a Bachelor of Fine Arts in creative writing. I went to an art school in Chicago and got my degree. I also am an experienced registered yoga teacher. I've taught yoga for the past, it's almost 20 years now, which is kind of mind-boggling. Yoga really, I could say, saved my life when I was in college in Chicago, not doing so well, and found myself in a class where the woman teaching played singing bowls and chanted and put us into these relaxing positions and helped us reconnect to our breath, and it was absolutely transformational for me and inspired me to learn to teach yoga. And then I had a big experience in life with someone very close to me whose life also was changed and saved perhaps by frequency-specific microcurrent. And it was such a dramatic impact that it inspired me to decide to go back to school. 2.5 years of prerequisites, all of the science and math courses I avoided as an art student, I had to take in order to even apply to PT school. Going back to school, I was always kind of fascinated by what is the connection between, what is the bridge between science and what we can't define scientifically, what we might call spirituality, what we might call the subtle realms. And because of my background in yoga and experiences of healing from that modality, and because I kind of love learning and research and the mechanisms, like how does this work, I was really excited to return to PT school, where I thought I would be learning a lot more about frequency-specific microcurrent in my doctoral program. And it turned out that there was one paragraph in one textbook, electrical modalities, I think it was, or therapeutic modalities was the text, that even mentioned FSM. And it actually mentioned microcurrent, which is even less specific than frequency-specific microcurrent. And it shared a published study on microcurrent in the healing of Achilles tendinopathy. And I was shocked because I had witnessed a number, at least two, life-changing and potentially life-saving events as a result of frequency-specific microcurrent. One was the story that I shared with someone dear to me, healing from post-concussion syndrome that had been going on for years. And another was an infant of a dear friend of mine whose liver enzymes were not going in the right direction. And a friend of mine snuck an FSM unit into the children's hospital, cut the electrodes down so that they would fit on this tiny body, and treated this baby with a frequency protocol for the liver. And the next morning, the doctors were shocked. Liver enzymes are normalized, and she got to go home shortly after. So I didn't intend to go into that story, but I know from experiences that I've had with people in treatment, and this is all the way back before I started treating people, that FSM changes and saves lives. It just, it's an incredible modality. So I was shocked when there was very little mention of any of it in my doctoral program. And unfortunately for me, and maybe fortunately, the professor at my university who typically taught the lab on electrotherapeutic modalities, and she really knew some things about microcurrent. She was taking that semester to teach another class, so there was someone else who was very much less familiar with microcurrent teaching that section. So I really got, I would say, like very, very, very little education about FSM or microcurrent in my doctoral program, which to me was very disappointing, but I knew what I was going to do coming out of PT school. I was very certain that this would be how I practice after school. The other aspect of physical therapy school that is a fascinating topic, I think it's worth talking about, and it's with any medical school. There is a strong emphasis on evidence-based practice. So evidence-based practice means for every clinical decision that you make, is there a study, research, paper, practice pattern, and so on that is established in the literature to support your decision making? And that is it was very strongly emphasized throughout PT school. And in my doctoral program, we actually did some research. Each of us could create our research project. And I was so fortunate to have a research advisor who was totally supportive. And we actually created a randomized control trial on yoga breathing, 3-part breath, the dirga pranayama, on chronic low back pain. So I was able to randomize a group of people and have some of the people do the intervention, others were a control, and we showed in that study that people who performed the breathing practices, and we were telling them 7 days a week, well, most people only showed up to the 2 days a week in person to do the breathing practice. Twice a week with this breathing practice over the course of 8 weeks produced statistically significant improvements in people's chronic low back pain. So going through that process and actually doing a rigorous project like that was so inspiring to me and impactful. And it's like, wow, this is what it takes. This is what it takes to do research. This is what it takes to go through this rigorous process and collect data and run statistics and present it to the world. And so that was really impactful for me. And I had so much encouragement from my research advisor, who I am collaborating with today on additional projects, which is so fantastic. So I'm so grateful for that experience and for that emphasis on research. Now, I also find it very important to name the 3 pillars of evidence-based practice. So research, the published data that is already established in the literature, is one pillar of evidence-based practice, but there are 2 more. One is clinical experience, clinician experience, which as a new PT coming out into the world, you don't have a lot of clinical experience. You have what you have. But as you practice and you gain more and more experience and you recognize patterns and you get outcomes with your clients, you gain clinical experience that legitimately informs your evidence-based practice. And the 3rd pillar is patient preference or client preference. So that, to me, coming from the background that I come from, is I want to know what my clients' spiritual orientation is, what their beliefs are. Do they believe that they can fully heal? Do they participate fully in ownership of their health? Or are they showing up to an appointment to have something done to them and then go out the door and hope they're feeling better? So these 3 pillars I find are equally important. And in a research field where people try to publish data on FSM, cases on frequency-specific microcurrent, and get denied, being told that's not medically possible, or whatever the rejection message is, it makes one question the industry of research, the business of research, the field of research, who is paying for these studies and who are making these decisions. And we hope that evidence-based practice can move forward informed by clinical experiences and research clinicians like myself trying to put the data out there and the information out there so that funding potentially can happen. So we have the 3 pillars of evidence-based practice: the research data, literature, patient preference, and clinician experience. And these 3 pillars, there's no one that's more important than the other. They're all equally important. And I think my perspective on that might differ from other clinicians' perspectives. In PT school, we are really, really, really trained to look to the data, the published research. And a lot of PTs are therefore hesitant or reluctant to utilize an intervention that may not have as many papers published on it. Now, frequency-specific microcurrent is exploding, and microcurrent in general, there's more and more data coming out every month, and it's really exciting because I have a knowing and a clinical understanding that this intervention is phenomenal. It does so many incredible things, and the research is slowly starting to gain momentum and get published, and cases are coming out, and it's a very exciting time to be involved in FSM. I also have the orientation toward research. I want all of the other clinicians that I know that are working with FSM in their practice to publish a case and put it out there so that we know from a more rigorous scientific perspective what is actually going on clinically. There's a lot going on, a lot of miracles happening, a lot of clinical outcomes that are very, very important to share with each other. And the best way to do that in our medical field is to publish a case report. So what is happening for me as a clinician, as someone who does mentorship for other FSM practitioners, advanced practitioners who have gone through Carol's core and advanced and want to take it even further, I am becoming more and more interested in ways to empower other clinicians to utilize their notes, their documentation that we're required to do as practitioners, and how do we transform those aspects of our practice into a published case report, or a collection of cases, or an editorial on clinical outcomes with frequency-specific microcurrent. So I am amidst a very exciting submission of a paper that I hope will get published. It's a case report, crossing my fingers that it goes through. Also, just to name this, I'm kind of surprised at how expensive it is to get a case report published. You actually, if you want your case to be open access and accessible to the public and not gate kept behind a fee that someone has to pay in order to read your paper to a journal, it's anywhere from $995 to $3,500 just for me as a clinician to submit to a journal and get that case published. So, I mean, that's an interesting conversation I think we need to have around the barriers to publication that many of us may face, despite having amazing results, amazing findings in our clinical practices. All of that to say, I am developing an interest, a passion for how can I empower other frequency-specific microcurrent practitioners to actually get published, to get data out there in the world. And it's not as hard as you think. There are barriers, but once you go through the process one time, you realize, oh my goodness, all of these other cases that are evidence of the effectiveness of FSM are worth pursuing and getting out there into the world. So I'm not sure how this is going to actually pan out. I have a practitioner mentorship program. We're running the initial pilot program now, and then I'm going to open it up to any advanced FSM practitioner in the future. And what I'm learning as we're going through this pilot program is that my passion is in empowering these amazing clinicians, very skilled clinicians, passionate and talented, to get some of their cases out there in the world and share them more broadly with the greater community, if not just the FSM community, beyond the FSM community into the world. So I guess this is a lot more long-winded than I thought it was going to be, but I hope it's inspiring, because as a young art student, I had no idea that I would become interested in research. And it's not that I am actively pursuing it. It's more like it's something that just needs to happen, and opportunities are kind of falling into place that enable me to pursue this, and then to also support other people in pursuing this. So no matter where you are in your life, maybe you are totally in alignment with what you want to do. I know that before I went to art school, I had no idea. I actually went 1 year to school to learn equestrian science because I love horses and I was a horse person growing up. And then I did a year at a community college, and I changed my major 3 times at the art school, photography, visual art, and then creative writing finally. Oh, and of course journalism. I guess I changed it 4 times. It all informed every decision or mistake, you might call it, that I made along the way, really helped me to get to where I am today. And I feel so grateful for the challenges and the gifts. And so even when I was struggling in school, in undergrad, that's what led me to my first yoga class, which totally changed the trajectory of my life. So the struggles, the challenges are often our greatest teachers. I know that's so cheesy, but it's so true. So thank you for listening. And if you're a practitioner interested in learning more about FSM mentorship, I have a whole program for that, and I do one-on-one sessions. You can book a free consult. If you're a patient just interested in FSM, learning more about frequency-specific microcurrent, or wanting to connect with a practitioner near you, I do offer free 15-minute consults for anybody interested in learning more about this modality. And you can sign up for a consultation on my website, resonantequus.com/booking. And I wish you all alignment with your highest potential.